Tell me about this breaking news. Russia declares 30-hour Easter ceasefire with Ukraine.
I mean, it's incredibly amusing to hear because about 10 minutes ago, I heard the air raid sirens going off outside my apartment. So it is a little surreal to hear that someone has declared a ceasefire while you are awaiting rockets and drones.
Right. But does that mean, is there any chance at all that what this declaration means is you are awaiting rockets and drones, which will now not come and will not drop bombs or anything else on innocent Ukrainian civilians? Is there a chance that you were expecting it, but it will now be halted?
I think there are better chances of a snowball staying frozen in hell. To be quite frank, Putin is simply not someone that you can rely on, trust on, or agree with to hold his word in absolutely any capacity.
So you don't think that this is a kind of grandstanding announcement that is meant to some extent evoke, I don't know whether it's sympathy or it's meant to evoke admiration or it's meant to show President Trump that, that he is a serious, at least a serious presence at the negotiating table, that it's not a mistake in any way. It's done on purpose and purposefully to achieve some kind of reaction.
I mean, presumably Putin has some motivation behind calling a ceasefire that he has in no way signaled or even motioned that he was interested in. I'm sure he has some reason for it. But from the Ukrainian perspective, those reasons are worthless and his words are worthless. I guarantee you that after whatever officially declared time this ceasefire is quote unquote supposed to start, there's still going to be an air raid siren in Kyiv.
But then that doesn't that mean that President Putin shows and then risks a chance of looking diminished and deceitful in the eyes of the world if that happens?
I mean, I think his
if he doesn't already,
20 to 30 years of being a dictator of Russia has proven to the world quite how duplicitous and deceitful Vladimir Putin is.
So you think this is just an announcement which is worthless, baseless and pointless?
Yes, correct, as is the majority of what comes out of Russia. Russia is not interested in peace. They are interested in our capitulation. And the only possible reason he could be calling this is simply so when the ceasefire is inevitably broken by Russians that he will blame on Ukraine, he can go to Putin and go, well, see, we deserve these conquered territories because the Ukrainians are so mean they broke a ceasefire on Easter. That's the only possible reason he would do any of this.
All right, let's talk about President Trump saying, I'll walk away from the table, I'll take a pass. If they don't get on with it, I'm just going to say, you're fools, you're horrible. This is exact quotation. And the sophistication of the language is just, I don't know what to even say about it. You're fools, you're horrible people, and I'm walking away. I mean, what do you make of that?
Exactly. I mean, this was not a unforeseen outcome, let's just say, when Donald Trump started making noises how this conflict is all Biden's fault and Zelensky's fault and he could have it wrapped up in no time at all. Obviously, this is just the usual bluster that Donald Trump has employed to raise his profile for the past 30 years. There was never any chance that Trump would be in any way, shape, or form capable of bringing this conflict to a close or even bringing the two sides closer to the negotiating table. That's not what he was put in power to do.
Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Romeo Kokriatsky there, managing editor at the New Voice of Ukraine. Let's go to Greg Swenson, chair of Republicans Overseas. Greg, thank you for joining me. So we have this breaking news. Russia declares 30-hour Easter ceasefire with Ukraine, coinciding, of course, with Donald Trump and Marco Rubio saying if they don't just crack their heads together and get on with it, we're out of here. We'll take a pass. It's not our war. We didn't start it. These are all direct quotations from them. What do you make of that? Does he mean it?
I'm not sure if he means it. It might just be a negotiating tactic, and it looks like it worked, at least to the degree that Putin has stepped up and announced a ceasefire. Now, again, I'm with your earlier guest. You can't trust Putin, and so, as Reagan used to say, trust but verify. I would say don't trust and definitely verify. But But look, this is, at least it's something, right? This has been a stalemate in terms of the war and a stalemate in terms of the negotiations. And that's all on Putin. I'm not blaming Zelensky here. But I do think that, there was some frustration with Marco Rubio and President Trump. They're both frustrated on the process, so good for them.
Good for them what? Good for them to threaten to walk away? But will they do it, though?
They might not. It's hard to say. I mean, President Trump is unpredictable. He's provocative. He's unorthodox. That's what the voters voted for. If he wants to end this war, he's doing his best. I mean, look, the wild card here is not President Trump and President Zelensky. The wild card is Putin.
Well, the wild card is Putin, and yet isn't Trump behaving like a wild card? For example, in saying after the latest bombing, it was a mistake in a kind of, you might say, sort of a nonchalant kind of, these mistakes are made manner, when actually, of course, it's not a mistake, it's deliberate, and it's done to kill people, and they're innocent people just going about their business. If you look at any TV screen, you'll see them bleeding, shocked, dazed, stumbling across roads, broken apartments everywhere, and then people who are just trying to have an Easter Sunday dinner, for God's sake. So how can you say it's a mistake?
No one's advocating that, right? And President Trump in his first term was very hostile to Putin. And that's clear because he was using deterrence. He was basically pushing peace through strength. And unfortunately, it's a little late for that because 3 years ago, Russia invaded, and that's kind of history now. So what he's trying to do is end the war. He is very much an anti-war president. Again, it's a little late for deterrence. That should have been, during the first year of the Biden administration, when Biden, for example, took the sanctions off of Nord Stream 2, amongst other things. And so, this is something where President Trump is inheriting an unpleasant situation. He'll use whatever tactics he can to end this war. He might not think it's productive to call out Putin at every turn, and you saw that in a few months ago, especially in the Oval Office with Zelensky. And it's not because he thinks that Putin's a good guy. He thinks that Putin's a bad guy. The problem is right now he wants to end the war and stop the killing.